Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. I'm a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's okay. It's okay. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, it's a promise and a threat. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. I'm a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. It's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, it's a promise and a threat. I ain't never really wanna flex my gifts, but I think it's my time, let me check my wrist. You can never dim my shine, I'ma keep on grinding till I reach the top. When it's just in my jeans and I ain't looking back, cause I'm feeling like Chris, bro. They can never slow me down, but they need to hate me, now I'm feeling like Chris. Rock with the team, cause you know that we winning, we with it, we going, we flowing again. I might just go by a Benz, I might just blow my advance, whoa. I did it all for the feeling, alive but I'm making a killing. I'm gonna break every ceiling, cause I need a million, but I don't need your money, you can pay me in respect. Cause once I do it big, what's to follow is a check. I need 100 bags, nothing more, nothing less. And the ops feel away, cause I'm next, I'm a threat. Oh yeah. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. I'm a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. It's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, it's a promise and a threat. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. It's a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. You know I ain't letting up, my foot is on your neck. Take my word for it, it's a promise and a threat. I ain't been feeling spectacular, flow so sick it's hazardous. Y'all still suck like Dracula. Sip this beat, let's back it up. And I don't care about critics cause they talk too much, and I know that I gotta keep on grinding, finding myself. I ain't gonna stop until I know I had enough. Mama, I made it, I know that they see me. I'm popping these bottles just like I'm a genie. I'm glad that you made me. It's all in my DNA. I'm about my chips like I'm working for Frito-Lay. And bet the bag on myself. I don't do this for my health. Every thread is a champion. Got the title, need a belt. I don't need your money, you can pay me in respect. Once I do it big, what's to follow is a check. I need 100 bags, nothing more, nothing less. And the ops feel away, cause I'm next, I'm a threat. Oh yeah. Really, y'all don't know this, y'all in danger, I'm a threat. It's a gamble with your life, cause you know that it's a bet. It's a bet. You know
Peachy as can be. Penn State selected to face Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl. It is one of the bowls that James Franklin has never been to. That game will be on December 30th. A lot to talk about before then. Transfer portal is open. Penn State officially hires offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki. And we have to figure out the opt-outs and who might be going and staying. So a lot to discuss on tonight's show. Thank you for being here. Let's get right into it. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Corey Lestochi. With me, as always, the great Shawn Kane. How are you doing today, Shawn?
I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth, Corey. I'm feeling peachy. How about you?
Just peachy, yeah. You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, I told you guys this on the last episode that I was hoping for the Peach Bowl because it's a bowl that Penn State has never been to, at least when it was called the Peach Bowl. And again, to me, it's like collecting Pokemon gym badges as far as the New Year's Six Bowls are concerned. And James Franklin's already won the Cotton Bowl. He's already won the Rose Bowl. And he's already won the Fiesta Bowl. So you might as well finish off the New Year's Six with another one. And although Penn State and James Franklin hasn't, done an amazing job overall in bowl games, he's done pretty good in New Year's Six games specifically. So I think they're going to be well prepared. And Shawn, we kind of got best of both worlds because, I was like, I want Peach Bowl, and you were like, I just don't want to face the Tulane/SMU team, or Liberty for that matter. And Penn State ends up getting Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss got pretty fortunate, honestly, to get a New Year's Six game, considering that Georgia and Missouri were already in there as well, but a good opponent. Lane Kiffin's going to be fun to mess with, and he's already had a couple good quotes in there. So all in all, I think Penn State, you got to be pretty happy. Obviously, some fans are never going to be happy, right? Because they didn't finish the job. But as far as like New Year's Six bowl games go, you kind of got a good bowl and you got a good opponent.
Yeah, I mean it's good for what it was. Yeah, of course we all wanted the playoff, but those dreams died a month ago. So onward and upward. And yeah, I'm happy with it. First time, like you said, first time in the Peach Bowl. First time Penn State's played Ole Miss in forever. I mean, maybe one of the old heads that listen to us can tell us when, but I can't. I fancy myself a semi-historian when it comes to Penn State. I don't remember a time when Penn State played Ole Miss, or even hearing about it.
Nope, this will be the first time ever.
There you go. So, not a crazy historical program, but still SEC program. Lane Kiffin has them winning. They're not a great team by any stretch. They're not an elite program, but they're a good one. And they've had good teams really almost all of Lane Kiffin's tenure there. I'm generally a Lane Kiffin fan. He could come off as kind of a Richard at times, but he's kind of like a funny Richard. Like he's very quotable, and great offensive mind, and a decent head coach. He got a head coaching job way too young, when he wasn't ready for it, when he was with the Raiders and then when he was with USC. I don't think he was mature enough
Tennessee.
then.
Don't forget Tennessee.
And USC, yeah. And he was, Tennessee. I just don't think he was ready for it. He was very, very young and very immature. So I think he's sort of a different guy now. And yeah, it's funny the way it went this weekend, because I felt like most projections either had us playing Tulane or Missouri going into this weekend. Then Tulane loses, then Georgia loses, and then we had projections for us to play Georgia. And then we're going to get into what happened yesterday with Florida State getting left out in the cold. That changed some things, and then all of a sudden we're playing Ole Miss. And Ole Miss had been a team that we were talked about a little bit more like 2 weeks ago of playing, but now we circle back to Ole Miss, and that really underscores something I said last week. Like all these bowl projections, in my opinion, you can almost throw them out the door or throw them out the window, because in pretty much every year, who Penn State is mostly projected to play isn't the team we end up playing. So, and that's the way it was this year too. But overall, I think it's a good matchup for us. It's a game that don't want to give my official prediction away yet, but I think you have to feel pretty decent if you're a Penn State fan. And it's a good team. So it would be a nice way to cap off the season.
Yeah, let us know on YouTube if you're listening what your thoughts are on the Peach Bowl right off the bat. I think Ole Miss is a better team than Missouri. So I think Penn State's got a better opponent than Missouri. Ole Miss, kind of in a similar way, had a similar season to Penn State. Their two losses, Georgia and Alabama. So, wasn't able to beat the best teams, but they did beat LSU this year. They took care of everyone else. Not always in as dominating fashion as Penn State did. They kind of struggled with some other teams, but at the end of the day, they were 10-2 and lost to the two teams that they're kind of aspiring to be. And very much different, though, as far as their identity. They're like a good offense. I think they're top 20 in most categories, and their defense is a little suspect. So be interesting to see how Penn State's able to move the ball and see if Ole Miss is able to slow them down. And then you got to be excited to watch the Penn State defense versus the Ole Miss offense. Like that's going to be a fun matchup. It's probably one of the better matchups in all of the bowl games, right? It's a good matchup for that. It would have been similar. Same with Missouri has a good offense too, but I think Ole Miss offense even a little bit better. Penn State officially favored in this one. Penn State is again 21-0 in the last 3 years when they're favored. Right now the line's at like -4. And kind of like, I guess, Shawn, I want to ask you, we don't know what's going to happen with opt-outs. People are hopping in the transfer portal already. Talk about that in a second. But like, if the game happened at full strength, which it's not going to, which very much could change our predictions, I think I would take Penn State to win. Not comfortably, but S&P Plus, I think, had them as a 10-point favorite. I could see them winning by 7 points if everything, which it's not going to be, if everything was normal.
Yeah. And full disclosure, I want to do a little more research into Ole Miss before I get down to like scores and everything. But I mean, you're right in that Penn State, lost to the two best teams they played. So did Ole Miss, but like Ole Miss got crushed by Georgia, and they didn't look particularly great against Bama either. They lost by 2 touchdowns. So Penn State looked better against the teams that the best teams on their schedule, even though we lost and no moral victories, but just a comparison. So, what was your question again? I'm sorry, Corey.
Just like heads up, if they were both playing at full strength, where would you be leaning?
I'd be leaning toward Penn State.
Yeah. Mike Scatina on YouTube says, "What's up, guys? I'm excited for the matchup." Yeah, we're excited for it too. And then Ryan Marquette says, "Good matchup. Glad we didn't get a group of 5 team." Yeah, absolutely. Especially since Tulane lost. I mean, it stinks to be an Oregon fan right now because you lose to the same team twice. You probably your quarterback's probably not going to win the Heisman now, given that he's lost to Michael Penix Jr. twice. Although I always like to say, like, the quarterback isn't out there when the other quarterback's out there. Like, they always did that with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Like, Peyton Manning lost to Tom Brady. Well, Peyton Manning was never out there when Tom Brady was out there, but and then so all that happens, and then they also get stuck to play not Tulane, but Liberty of all teams. I think Liberty came at like 22nd, 23rd in the CFB rankings. They're undefeated, but they have the worst, not one of the worst. They have the worst strength of schedule, and just not even a good, like when Penn State played Memphis, I think Memphis at least had some respect. Obviously, when Auburn played UCF, and UCF won that game, they had a good amount of respect. But this Liberty team, this kind of reminds me of like when Wisconsin played, was it Western Michigan? Was that PJ Fleck's Western Michigan squad? That Western Michigan team, they had the one good receiver on the outside who went to the Cowboys, I think. And I think that was it. Like they really didn't have very many good players on that team. Nobody thought Wisconsin was going to lose. That UCF team, we knew was going to be able to play with Auburn. I just don't see Liberty having any chance against Oregon. And so, yeah, very much agree with Ryan. Very glad that Penn State avoided Liberty.
Yeah, I didn't want to play anybody from the group of 5. I don't think, and some people may disagree, I don't think group of 5 teams deserve it to be an automatic bid. I think it's silly that we have to shoehorn a team like Liberty in over a team like Oklahoma. I think it's dumb. I think it dampens the games. Now, if not dampens, I think it dilutes it. And like, if you have a team like Cincinnati from a few years ago that made the playoff, I was actually fine with Cincinnati making the playoff because you looked at the teams that were left out, and I thought Cincinnati was most deserving. UCF, they deserved to make a New Year's Six bowl a few years ago. But it shouldn't be an automatic thing. And there's just no group of 5 team in my mind that should have made it this year.
I just want to add to that real quick. People are talking about next year now, and they're like, oh, it'll be a lot better with the 12-team playoff. In my opinion, there's still 2 things clearly wrong with the playoff for next year. Yes, they've expanded it. I don't actually like 12 teams. I like 7 or 8 teams, but I'm happy they're expanding it. But there's 2 things that they're fundamentally flawed right now. Number 1 is the 4 byes go to the top 4 conference champions. So you could be ranked, Penn State and Michigan could be ranked number 1 and number 2 going into the Big Ten championship. Penn State beats Michigan in the Big Ten championship. Michigan then best ranking they can possibly basically be is 5. They're not going to be able to get one of those first buys, which if you want to value conference championships, I get it. But I think it kind of takes away from an opportunity for a team to get a buy that maybe deserved it. So I think they shouldn't be able to have a conference championship to get that buy. I think the 4 best teams should get that buy spot. And then the second thing, to your point, there is absolutely no reason that a group of 5 team should still have an automatic qualifier for the playoff. If they earn it, absolutely fine. No issue with it. A 12-0 UCF team would make it in a 12-team playoff. A 12-0 Cincinnati team would make it in a 12-team playoff. But you don't want to have a 12-0 awful, I don't want to say awful, not good Liberty team in the playoff. You don't want to have an 11-1, American team in the playoff. And here's why. All of the good group of 5 teams are no longer in the group of 5. Most of those have been bumped up. UCF, Coastal Carolina, Houston, like all these teams are starting to move into different conferences. And I shouldn't have said Coastal Carolina, but the point is all the good teams are moving into Power 5 conferences. You no longer need the group of 5 auto bid because all those good teams have moved on with their lives. The only team I can really think of that's still kind of stuck in is like maybe App State, but everyone else has kind of moved on, Houston, etc. So I don't think you need the group of 5 auto bid anymore. And again, this year, if it was a 12-team playoff, potentially Liberty would have got in over Oklahoma. And I just don't think that's right. I think Oklahoma is a 5 times better team than Liberty. So that just I don't like that, and that's probably not going to change. But I just know, and I don't. If you're on that bubble, you don't really have much of an argument, right? Because you probably have 2 losses. But I just know someone's going to get hosed out of a playoff spot because that we have to include a team that probably doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, it's silly. Yeah, that's really the only way I can describe it. Like you said, if you earn your spot, if you beat a couple good teams, sure. I mean, I'm not a snob to the group of 5 per se, but they are not created equal generally. Like, they are not the same typically as a team like Penn State, who I do not, they showed they are not an elite team, but they're not the same. They're not on the same level. And the whole point of them being there would basically be to play spoiler because they are not winning a semifinal game. Like, it's just not happening. And they're not even going to win round 1. It's going to be like watching the Big Ten East, the Big Ten West. Every year, the team that's the 5 seed, it'll probably be a running joke. Oh, they got to play the group of 5 now. And it'll be a lot like the Big Ten West memes.
It'd be like playing, okay, let's go back to my other scenario there. Penn State beats Michigan in the Big Ten championship. Now Michigan, best they can be as a 5 seed, would host Liberty in this kind of convoluted scenario. Because that's the thing, the 12 seed still has to go on the road and face the number 5 seed. It's not even like it's a neutral site. So it's like if the Big Ten championship this year was Iowa having to go at Michigan to make matters even worse. Not even a neutral site game. So yeah, can you imagine that? Like Liberty going into Michigan? Like it's not going to be this year. It would have been Liberty going into Florida State.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. And I think we all just gotta buckle up and get ready for it. And
it also, I will say this, Shawn.
The thing. Go ahead.
It does make being 5 or 6 kind of a big deal because 6 you're going to get probably a 2-loss Power 5 team, and 5 you're going to get a group of 5 team.
Right. Now, I think what could change it is none of these teams are going to produce any money. And money makes the world of college football go around. So it could be a very easy fix, and they might just eliminate them all. They might just end up eliminating them altogether if they're not competitive, which like I said, could happen. Not a guarantee, but I think it could happen.
How do you? It's just so funny because they're gonna go from, oh, we need the best teams in to, oh, we need to allow a group of 5 team in. It's just like, how do you kick Florida State out and then come back the next year and say we need to have a group of 5 representative? It's hilarious.
Well, there's goofy ass committee makes its own rules. You have to remember that, and they will. Yeah. Who's picking these next year? Is it the same jokers that are there this year?
As far as I know, they still have a committee. Yeah.
Yeah, because they need some way to do it. So that they'll make up their own rules like they always do. One of the reasons I actually kind of like the top 4 teams being conference champion, at least there's a criteria.
Right.
Like, it might not be the best criteria because overall, I do hear you.
Right.
But at least it's something. It's not just a bunch of. Did you see that picture of them from 2 days ago? They all look like they're. It looks like watching the U.S. Senate. They're all like 75-year-old, mostly white dudes, and like a woman and like 1 or 2 black people, and they're just sitting there, no beer, there's no youth. I don't think there's any non-gray hair there. And I'm like, these are the people that are going to be picking it. There's like, really? These are the people? And sure enough, like, they made the wrong decision. And
why can't they get a spokesperson that at least is a little bit better? Like,
yeah, that's the other thing. Watching that
Boo, whatever his name is just. I mean, you got to get someone else. That was at least the Kirby Hocutt guy a couple years ago. I think he was a Texas Tech athletic director. He at least was a little bit younger and had, like, this guy's reading off of talking points. Like, he doesn't even answer questions. He just says like whatever he's supposed to say.
They shouldn't even have him on.
No.
Because you get absolutely nothing from those interviews.
No, if you're trying to like provide transparency, that's not it. Like, that's not providing anything at this point.
If you want to provide real transparency, have video cameras there.
C-SPAN?
Honestly, yeah, you might as well have C-SPAN. They're very used to watching old people argue. Yeah, just have, I don't know. And then the way ESPN was groveling for the SEC, it made me sick. Like, Kirk Herbstreit, who I like, I mean, that soliloquy went on before Bama got revealed. I wanted to throw up in my mouth listening to him.
There's some conspiracies behind that too that they knew ahead of time.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me because it was out of nowhere too. Herbie just started talking up Bama, and then you see Bama's logo come up. It was weird. It was a weird thing that happened, and the only one that was talking any sense on that panel, ironically enough, because we kind of make fun of him sometimes, was Booger McFarland.
Yeah, well, because Booger had Florida State all the time. Like, he was on the Florida State train from the get-go. And for the blog, he says on YouTube, Cory with the hockey playoff beard, we dig it. Yeah, I haven't shaved.
Full season.
I've trimmed it up a little bit, but I haven't really shaved for quite some time. All right, let me just say this too. It's one thing, again, to have a set of criteria, like you said, Shawn, and stick with it, and it is what it is. But like you said, there has been no consistency, not even like year to year, because there are some changes on the committee. But like, even this year especially, they weren't even consistent for a set of rankings. Like, they would rank, like, for example, take Florida State. You put Bama over them because you say Bama is the better team. Okay. Don't agree with that. But using that same logic, how can you possibly say that Ohio State and Georgia are worse than Florida State then? Because that doesn't make any sense. Florida State should 100% be behind at least Georgia and at least Ohio State. And if you're just doing it based off of the best teams, Florida State should probably be like behind Oklahoma based off of what they're trying to say. So I just don't think there's any consistency with that. You see that all the time. I mean, look where Tennessee continues to be ranked at. They do a lot of things, based off of whatever they want. Even at the beginning, right? Like, the early rankings, they said Ohio State early on had some of the best wins, and that's why they were number one. But then they would have Washington ranked at 5 even though they had a bunch of good wins. So there was no consistency throughout it. And it will be better next year because there are 12 teams. And I think most people would say if you lose 2 games, if you're putting your chances in the committee's hands, just like the officials' hands, you really can't expect anything but pain. And I think most people will be okay with that. But I would be 100% okay with them going back to the BCS to choose the 12 best.
Honestly, like everybody couldn't wait to get rid of the computers. The good thing about the computers, I'm biased. And it wasn't just the computers picking it, it was a combination of the polls. So, there was some good, there was some bad with it. And there was controversy back then, but it just feels like this is so subjective. And like you said, they just make up their own rules as they go along, and it's almost a week to week thing. And it's silly.
The saddest part is, and I think why fans get so upset about it, is that they do not represent the fan bases, right? Like if you look at those people, like you said, like a bunch of old guys, but they don't look like fans. It doesn't seem like they actually watch the games. Like I do know, like, because I think John Urschel was interviewed when he was a member, that they get cut, like, get an iPad and they get cut ups of the game. So first of all, they don't even get like the full game. They just get like they get the whole film, but it's cut up without the commercials. And I think like that takes away from it some right off the bat. But secondly, like, how much film are they honestly watching? Again, these people are still athletic directors. These people are like, they're not watching that many games. Like, you think they spend the entire day Sunday watching games? Because I don't think they are. And so I think that is where fans get so upset, because it's not like you just made one bad decision, but you got a bunch of football people up there that love the sport and care genuinely about the sport. You don't have those people up there. I mean, it's very almost in the same. It's very much kind of like losing your credibility, and they don't have any right now. And like I said, I think I said this before. You could give me 2 days, and I think I could find a better, evenly fair committee than what they've been able to put out, and it doesn't take very much. And I just love the whole recuse process too. Like, they're not supposed to talk about certain teams too. Like, we don't even know if they do that. They say that, but how do you do that? So, D.A. Adams says Reese Davis could have had the Stones to push back when he got a non-answer, but that would never happen. The whole panel at ESPN, with the exception of Booger, who I usually think is an idiot, was nothing but a group of unapologetic committee apologists.
Yeah, it was. And look, there's going to be conspiracies because which network is closest associated with the playoff? It's ESPN. And ESPN is going to be the SEC network starting next season. And it's going to be exclusively on ESPN. And look, Fox does the same thing with the Big Ten. Well, Big Two. Like, they talk about Ohio State, Michigan. They always talking about them. So they do the same thing, only Fox doesn't have the playoff. And now you get the ACC. And what's up with the and everybody's always talking about the ACC is next to disband. There's rumors just in the offseason. Florida State's looking at the SEC, maybe looking at the Big Ten. Clemson has been rumored with the SEC for a few years now. So they don't really have a media presence that will advocate for them. I think they're associated with ESPN, if I'm not mistaken, but they ain't the moneymaker. That's the SEC, and everybody knows it.
Yeah, I mean, just where the SEC games usually go, a lot of the ACC network games are an ESPN Plus only.
Right.
And they don't really do that for the SEC games very often. So, yeah, it's frustrating. I think I would absolutely riot if Penn State went 13-0, and then let's say, Drew Aller gets hurt in the Big Ten championship game, and they just decide not to not to include Penn State in the playoff. Oh my Lord, I would lose my mind. But again, like Shawn, realistically, would they have done that to a Clemson? Everything else the same. Would they have done that to a Clemson? Would they have done that to an Alabama? I don't think they would have.
It's funny too, because like Florida State's not like some help me I'm poor program. Like
right.
They're Florida State. That's a top 10 to 15 program of all time.
Right.
And yeah, they just totally screwed them. In their day, I don't think they would have done it to Clemson, because I saw Clemson teams that played the same exact schedule as Florida State getting.
Right.
And there was really never even a question about Clemson getting in, ever. They got in with one loss in 2016.
Yep.
And there was no controversy about them getting in over us. It was Ohio State and kind of Washington, but I think Clemson was the 2 seed. And look, they obviously deserved to be there. They won the championship that year, but there was no real controversy involving them. So yeah, in their heyday, I don't think Clemson would have been left out.
Yeah, I'll just wrap up by saying too, Ohio State was able to win a playoff game, was able to win a national championship with their backup and third string quarterbacks against beating Alabama, first of all, and then beating Oregon in the national championship. So like this idea that you just all of a sudden are no longer a good football team because you lose your quarterback is just unfair, and it just sends an awful message that it's not a team sport and it's just all about the quarterback. And just imagine how that poor kid Travis feels, as far as, I mean, what he tweeted about saying, I wish I would have broke my leg sooner so people could have saw that. I mean, that gives me goosebumps. I'm just disgusted about it. I mean, it's sad to me, Shawn, because we obviously breathe college football 24/7, 365. And I just feel like our sport that we love and obviously give a lot of our time to is slowly deteriorating away from us. Whether it's the 4.5-minute commercial breaks, or it's the changing of the rules to shorten the game, or if it's, not accepting an undefeated Power 5 conference champion.
It's just very money driven today. And has college football always been money driven to an extent? Yeah. But with these massive TV deals, like, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry now. And there are a lot of interests. And we saw it Friday night on ESPN and Saturday on ESPN. And just, it was like watching Fox News talk about Republicans or MSNBC talk about Democrats. That's what it was like. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. And it really was never this way. Now, the thought of SEC bias has always been out there. I'll remind people the SEC is the best conference and has been for a long, long time. So there's kind of a justifiable reason. But the way ESPN leaned into it was gross and wrong. And maybe some of them genuinely felt that way. I'm sure they did. But just the degree in which they did it, and they just discounted an undefeated Power 5 team, it was disgusting. And I hear you. I think the biggest problem is money. There's too much money in the sport. Thankfully, the players are finally getting a piece. And that's the biggest problem. Everybody's making way too much money, especially these universities and these TV networks.
Yeah, the TV networks are really driving a lot of this. Penn State hired offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki. I guess I don't even know what day it was, but I think it was Wednesday. Or Tuesday maybe. We broke it down.
It was
on Monday's
Thursday.
show. Was it Thursday show? We broke it down on Wednesday? No.
Did we have a show Wednesday?
No, we did not, but it was Monday's show. Yeah,
okay.
It was Monday's show.
Then you're right.
I think. We talked about him quite a bit then because we had a feeling that was coming. And then we actually had a space on Twitter, State Media and Adam Brenneman and a couple others hopped in there and we talked about it. So if you're able to join that on Twitter, that's just one more reason you should be following us on Twitter at Hardcore PSUFB. Maybe we'll try to do a little bit more of the spaces every once in a while. But Shawn, you've had a little bit more time to sit on this one, do a little bit more research. What are your thoughts on Andy Kotelnicki?
Sad to report, no fullback. But yeah, I mean, look, guys, the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, Kansas was nearly last in the country in total offense, and then Kotelnicki gets there, and they're top 20 overnight. Last year, he loses his quarterback, Jalen Daniels, very, very early in the season. Put the backup in, and they still hum along. Now, they lost more than they would have for sure if they had Jalen Daniels, but their offense was not the problem. I mean, I think the one thing that pretty much I've heard every coach say that's ever coached one of my teams is we're going to play to our personnel. Honestly, guys, it's rare that I see that in practice. Honestly, and I think I've seen a lot of good coaches at Penn State. I haven't seen a lot of good coaches with the Dolphins, but I've seen a couple good coaches with the Dolphins. It rarely happens, but the good ones always do it. They always do their best to put their guys in positions to make plays and play to their strengths. They don't do things that they're not comfortable with. So if that sounds like the opposite of what we saw from Mike Yurcich this year, it's because it is. And that's what James Franklin was looking for. He was looking for somebody who has experience. He has experience. And experience calling plays. He did an excellent job at Buffalo. Did a good job both times he came to Happy Valley, especially in 2019. It was a close game at halftime, and Kotelnicki's offense was impressive that night. So I think just the way he could turn he's turned offenses around with less talent. Now you're going to have more talent at Penn State. Like, he's never coached Nick Singleton before. He's never coached Kaytron Allen. He's never coached Drew Aller. I think you have to be excited if you're a Penn State fan. Of course, wait and see. I was very excited about hiring Mike Yurcich as well. And we have to keep that in mind. We have to see what happens. But I am cautiously optimistic about Kotelnicki being hired.
Yeah, I think cautiously optimistic is the right term. I really like what I saw. I did a little film room breakdown. I think that was on Tuesday, maybe. I think that I threw that out there. So check that out if you haven't yet. Showed some plays from when Kansas played Oklahoma. So there's some good. Now, not that Oklahoma's defense is good, but there's good talent out there. And also showed some plays from the Buffalo Penn State game in 2019. So that's on Twitter as well. I was just, impressed that I think he fits the personnel well. He likes to run the football, and honestly, he runs a lot of the same concepts. He, runs pin and pull. He runs outside zone. He runs inside zone. He has some fancy 2 quarterback sets. He has some true old-fashioned wildcat sets with 2 running backs in the backfield. But most importantly to me is it appears that he's able to build off of the run with solid play action. I've felt this year that Penn State's play action did not look like Penn State's running plays. And so you weren't really getting all of the effectiveness out of the play action because it didn't really look like a play action a lot of the time. And so I think he does a better job of that. He runs some under center. He runs a lot from the pistol. And I think Nick Singleton especially runs better from behind the quarterback versus next to the quarterback. Now, he runs some shotgun things as well. But I think the running backs are going to be really happy with this. He likes to get the tight ends involved a lot in the red zone. I was really impressed with his third down play calling as well as his red zone play calling. I think his red zone play calling is phenomenal. And I think the tight ends should be really excited. No matter who comes back, the tight ends should be excited in that sense. Trying to think, there's a couple other things that stood out to me. He ran a lot of rub routes, so that shouldn't be much of a change from what we saw. seemed like he liked to attack the middle of the field, deep crossing routes, which we talk about quite a bit. But he's also trying to get, in that Buffalo game in 2019, he let Van Treese throw the ball down the field against Penn State and connected multiple times. And the other thing I wanted to mention, Van Treese, not an amazing quarterback at Buffalo, goes to Kansas. Yes, he had Jalen Daniels for half the season, but the offense continued to do good things after Jalen Daniels hurt his back. And then they actually, for a little bit, had their third string quarterback in there, and they're still able to score some points. So I think it doesn't matter. And I think that's something Franklin was cautious of, was making sure I'm not just getting an offensive coordinator that had excellent talent, but I'm also getting a guy who's won with a bunch of different weapons. And Kotelnicki's done that. He's had an explosive quarterback at Kansas and Daniels, but he also had a really good running back with Jarrett Patterson out of Buffalo. So he's been able to use different pieces and still be successful. And that makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, I think there's a natural instinct among fans to be like, well, let's go get somebody from Ohio State staff, or get somebody from Michigan staff, or Lincoln Riley's. But that's not always the best idea, because those guys are so used to having that top shelf talent, like you said. And you can't do everything that you did with Marvin Harrison with DeAndre Lambert-Smith. It's just they are not the same. So yeah, I think there's some truth to that. Also, from some of the people on the beat, like Mark Brennan mentioned, like Mike Yurcich had a bit of an abrasive personality, and I think that's part of why James Franklin fired him, because he wanted more. He didn't really play well with others. And from everything I hear about Andy Kotelnicki, it's the exact opposite. He's a very personable person, willing to collaborate. There is a guy that covers Kansas on the Lions 247 pod, and he said he actually had every single player on offense in the offseason come up with a play and design the play themselves. And Kotelnicki would help them refine it, help them get it so that it could potentially be used. And he actually used a few of them during the season in games. So he's willing to listen to different ideas. And really, those are, in my mind, the best kind of leaders, are those that don't think they know everything and are, put people down for having different ideas and are willing to work with others. So I think you're going to see somebody who is creative and willing to collaborate. And that's also something I think James Franklin was looking for in this hire. Somebody who could fit their culture, because really that's their culture. Like pretty much every coach that I've seen Penn State have in the James Franklin era, they all come off as decent dudes. They all come off as, personable, like a guy like Brent Pry, you could just tell, super nice guy. Terry Smith, like these are the guys that James Franklin typically has on his staff. And from what I understand from people who interacted with Mike Yurcich personally, it was a little bit different with Mike.
Yeah, and even Mike Yurcich had said something this offseason around like wanting to be better about kind of taking that criticism and being collaborative. So it wasn't like it came out of nowhere. Also, I think it helps that Kotelnicki had other cooks in the kitchen, from the sense that there was, he wasn't the quarterback's coach. So I feel like sometimes, and it usually is the case, but sometimes when you're the quarterback's coach and the offensive coordinator, you really don't have to have any more conversations with anyone besides the head coach. You know what I mean? But just having someone else in there as the QB's coach, he was a tight ends coach at Kansas. So I feel like that just automatically assumes that there's going to have to be some more collaboration there. And that's actually something I wanted to discuss tonight, Shawn. And we mentioned this on the Twitter space, and Franklin hasn't come out and said that he's going to be the quarterback's coach yet. That's something that we don't know yet. is offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki going to be the quarterback's coach? Are they going to have him coach the running backs or the tight ends? He's coached a lot of different things over his time in his career. You have Dylan O'Brien, who has a relationship with Drew Aller. Do you consider promoting him? What'd I say?
You said Dylan.
Oh, thank you. You have what I think they should do in promoting Ja'Juan Seider to quarterbacks coach. He played quarterback. It would be considered a promotion for him. Shawn, you've mentioned before that, yes, he's a great recruiter of the running back position. He's a great recruiter of a lot of positions. Additionally, we have not ever seen a Ja'Juan Seider running back graduate, graduate, and leave Penn State. They've all transferred out in his time at Penn State, which maybe that's just the nature of the transfer portal nowadays. But we haven't necessarily seen them get that much better in their time at Penn State under Ja'Juan Seider. Maybe he's a fantastic recruiter, and maybe he's just an okay developmental coach. Maybe he'd be better at the quarterback position from a developmental standpoint. And that promotion might keep Ja'Juan Seider around. And also Kotelnicki could then go and coach something that maybe he's more comfortable in, say the running backs. And I'll just add on, maybe it's better that way. If your offensive coordinator in a team we think is going to want to run the football is also your running backs coach instead of your quarterbacks coach. You can make the argument that's almost as important, if not more important, if you're trying to be, let's say, a 60-40 run team.
Yeah, I'm all there for that. Because like you said, Seider has experience playing quarterback, so he knows the position inside and out. He'd still be an ace recruiter, and he'd be an ace recruiter as a quarterback coach. So we would still be, one thing that we're going to lose with Mike Yurcich is his ability to recruit quarterbacks, because he was a phenomenal quarterback recruiter. Yeah, I'd be all good with that. I would point out all of the offensive coordinators in James Franklin's tenure were all the quarterback coach. So I think that's something Franklin is comfortable with, but I think you have to adapt a little bit in my mind. I mean, an option could be to have Kotelnicki as the official quarterback coach, but really Danny O'Brien as the quarterback coach. You could do something as a GA. You could do something like that if you want to get creative. But I'd prefer Cory's solution personally, because quarterback coach, that is a big job, and I don't think I'm all that super comfortable having a GA just be in charge of the quarterbacks, the most important position on your team. So I would want Ja'Juan Seider over Danny O'Brien.
Yeah. Real quick, what did I say O'Brien's first name was? I kind of just want to laugh at myself.
Dylan.
I don't know why I was thinking Dylan.
Dylan Gabriel was in the portal today.
Maybe. That's maybe what it was. I'm going to have to correct you a smidgen, Shawn. This is, I know why you didn't remember this, because you probably wanted to sear it from your memory. But John Donovan technically was a tight ends coach.
Oh, he wasn't the quarterback's coach.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Ricky Ronnie was the tight ends coach then. Or was the quarterback's coach. And then he moved. He got demoted. And then he became the OC.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. I stand corrected.
That's what I'm here for. I've corrected you on 2 shows in a row now, so I'm basically the biggest jerk on the show officially.
I got you on Danny versus Dylan O'Brien.
That's true. You did get me on that. At least I didn't say Manny O'Brien. Anyway,
speaking of Manny, are we going to listen to JMU?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
But
could lose.
Shout out to Indiana for getting. And speaking of that, actually, that's a good way to kind of go. Good direction, Shawn. So Penn State lost a analyst to Indiana, and that was, who was that? Ola, I believe. See if I can find it here.
I didn't see this.
You didn't see this? You don't have no idea what I'm talking about?
No.
Let me see if I can find it then. Yeah. Ola Adams is a defensive backs and safeties coach. He was a former defensive coordinator at Villanova before, but he was an analyst here at Penn State.
Well, we once said Ola. Now
What did I just say?
You say defensive back?
Defensive backs and safeties. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's a promotion. Good for him.
I wanted to say too, and I think we might have lost people for a second there. I apologize. I don't know why my computer has been disconnecting a couple of times lately, but I wanted to also say that Kotelnicki is bringing over with him a former Kansas staffer, Bill Quizert, as an offensive analyst and analytics coordinator, which, Shawn, analytics coordinator analytics is a buzzword around here. We love the analytics, and I had to take a little small jab today on the Twitter sphere, and I asked if he liked going for 2.
Oh yeah, that'll get the natives going.
But anyway, so one guy did come over from Kansas, followed Kotelnicki with him.
Yeah, I did see that. I think Manny Diaz had somebody come with him from Miami too in an analyst role. So it's not super uncommon that a coordinator brings a guy or two with them.
I wonder if it's like, hey, I need to bring somebody. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of
someone
people
who knows you.
Right. There's a lot of people that kind of follow the coattails of people for as long as they can.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to make room for somebody. I also hate the word analytics and then analysts because I feel like you almost say them differently and you can kind of get tongue-tied a little bit.
Yeah, it's like that. And speaking of following, and like Lance Leopold is one of the hidden gems of college football. Like, people don't talk about him as a great coach. I think he is a great coach. Like, this is a guy that's won everywhere he's ever been. Wisconsin, Whitewater, Buffalo, and now at Kansas. And the guy who was one of the architects of one of the who was the hidden gem of the hidden gem, is Andy Kotelnicki. So it's kind of cool. Now he gets a big time job, and he could show what he could really have a chance to let himself shine. And I don't think I've remembered outside of maybe Manny Diaz. And back then, Manny Diaz was a bit of a, when we hired him, he just got fired, so he wasn't coming in sparkling clean. This is probably the biggest consensus from the national media that Penn State got a really good one. This is probably the biggest consensus I can remember as far as coordinators go.
Yeah. Lee on YouTube says that analyst was Andy's right-hand man. So there you go. Okay, so, and I wanted to talk about the portal being opened up and kind of go that route. So the transfer portal's open. Punter Alex Paqueta has already entered the portal, which kind of made us think that it's possible that Riley Thompson, who we don't know how much eligibility he has left, there's a waiver in there that maybe the waiver has been approved. I don't know that for sure, but you don't think Paqueta would necessarily leave if Thompson is not going to be there. So anyway, Alex Paqueta, who was, I think, the number 1 in Cole's kicking coming out, he hits the portal. All the best to him. And then maybe a smidgen, Shawn, a smidgen of a surprise in former corner, then wide receiver Christian Driver. His dad, Donald Driver, was coached by James Franklin when he was with the Green Bay Packers. He hits the portal. And I understand it to a certain degree, right? Because it's like he didn't have an opportunity necessarily, at least what we could see, in a receiving room that wasn't really knocking the socks off it. anybody. So I get it, but
Christian Driver, like you said, the son of Donald Driver, James Franklin coached Donald Driver. He has a relationship with the family. I did expect some receivers to transfer out. I still expect more to transfer out. And it was a little surprising, but I don't think hugely. I don't think Christian Driver was ever in a spot that, like, he started at defensive back. I think he wanted to play wide receiver, and they wanted to start him at defensive back. He moves back to receiver, and I just don't think he ever got any traction, and he's portaling out. And the thing is, with things like this, and I'm not saying this happened, you don't know who's pushing who out. Look at what's happening with Ohio State. Kyle McCord is now in the portal. A lot of speculation as to what happened there. I do not know, but you have a lot of both running guys off and guys leaving to try to find a better spot, and you don't really know what happened. So I do think Christian Driver he is a promising prospect, and like you said, he's noted for his work ethic, so he could be successful somewhere else, but just didn't really work out here.
You surprised that there wasn't a larger flux of players hitting the portal immediately, Shawn?
A little bit. I thought we'd have about 4 guys in today. Now it just opened, so there's a lot of time. There's still a whole other portal window, and this one is far from closed. So you're going to see some more guys, and some of them, like I said, some of them will probably be leaving for playing time or because they're homesick or a million different reasons why. And some guys will be leaving because good chance the coach is telling them, hey, you're probably just not going to play here. So you're going to see a little bit more attrition. But I think it's a decent sign that we didn't have like 10 guys in the portal like Notre Dame and Ohio State did.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple schools that have over 10 players, which is crazy.
Yeah, like good teams. Like
yeah.
Ohio State's a really good team, and they're losing a lot of guys.
One of which, wide receiver Julian Fleming, Shawn.
Yes, our old friend, the pride of Northeast PA.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. Just wanted to give you the number. As of 3:25 Eastern, there was 1,000 football players that have entered the transfer portal in just the day. Since the end of the season on November 26th, 2,100 players have entered the portal.
And with the portal, and I feel like we talk about this a lot, not all those guys are going to find a home, especially in D1 or FBS. So,
Shawn, do me a favor and move to your right a smidgen for me. There you go.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that you have to be really sure that you're going to have a soft place to land, because some of these guys jump in the portal, they think they're a little better than they are, and then it just totally blows up in their face, and it's
never going to play football again.
Yeah, and then they don't play again, and it's sad to see. And then they're trying to graduate from college, and that's one of the things that I hear James Franklin talk about a lot. It does screw with your credits. If you've ever transferred a school in college, I did. I started at a little school called Marywood here in Scranton.
I didn't know that.
Yes, my freshman year. And I went to Penn State, Maine. Now, I was only a freshman, so I think all my credits except one class transferred over. But if you transfer over, depending on your major, you could lose like 15 credits or more, and then you were delayed to graduate, and some people just don't get to graduating. So it's you have to be very, very careful entering the portal.
There's definitely
some guys just jump in and they don't think about it, and they're just like, I'm getting out of here because I'm better than this guy or that guy, and then they're screwed. So you have to take a lot of thought before going in.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about, some of the guys that have entered Penn State portal needs, Shawn, going into the mystery bag, or what do they need to pull out of the portal this year? What are the positions that they should be focusing on?
Obviously, receiver. I think everybody knows
Hold
that.
on, Shawn. Start that again.
Yeah, obviously receiver. I think everybody knows there's a need at receiver. We're probably going to lose a couple guys in the portal. We already lost one today. So obviously they're going to focus on receiver. Old friend Julian Fleming entered the portal. So I think Penn State may be heavily involved there. Offensive tackle coming back next year. We're assuming Olu declares. And Caden Wallace, there's a good chance he's gone as well. Not definite, but there's a chance. So we may be down our 2 offensive tackles, and these are 2 of the better offensive tackle combination. This was one of the best offensive tackle combinations in the country. That's going to cost some money, but NIL coffers, hopefully we're good enough for it. I would like another defensive tackle. Now, it's important to note there was the transfer in from Old Dominion last year who got hurt in the offseason, didn't end up playing. So is
that Alonzo Ford Jr.?
Yes, Alonzo Ford. So he's going to be there. Look out for that. I wasn't going to say linebacker, but very interesting guy entered the portal last night. That's Shawn Barnum. So for those of you who follow recruiting closely, Shawn Barnum was down to Penn State, Maryland, picked Maryland, I believe, on signing day a few years back. And he's a very, very good player. We talked about him a little bit in the Maryland preview. So he's a really good player. He's more of a luxury, but if you could afford him, I say you'll get him because he could really play. And then I'd like to get another cornerback. Good chance. We're definitely losing Johnny Dixon. Kalen King probably goes to the draft. Daquan Hardy, I don't know yet, but he may go as well. And I would like to see at least one guy come out of the portal, whether or not Hardy comes back or not.
Oh, man.
What?
Nothing. You just made me laugh. I'll tell you after the show.
I'm always making you laugh.
No, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I think you nailed it there. Defensive tackle is an interesting one to me because I think they played really well, and they don't technically have to lose anybody. You expect Devon Ellies to probably leave.
Yeah, I'm kind of counting on that.
But Beeman can come back. Vandenberg can come back. Durant will be back. Izzard will be back.
Is Izzard coming back?
I don't know, but he could if he wanted. So I'm just saying you have a lot there. So yeah, I think you want to get one, but you do have depth that you feel pretty decent about. I will say, like, Devon Ellies played really well towards the end of this year. Probably like the last 6 games, I thought he really turned it on. So hopefully have him for the bowl game because I think he'll make a big difference. But yeah, if he leaves, you kind of need Beeman to step up and be that guy next to Zane Durant. Be Beefman. Be Hakeem Beefman. That's right. Corner, I agree with you. Receiver's the one though, Shawn. Right? I mean, when Corey Geiger was on the show, I mean, he harped about it. It was I love the way he put it. Like, Penn State does everything so well and prepares for every sort of situation. And how did they let the receiver room get to the point that it's at? And like, maybe Andy Kotelnicki will be able to turn some of that stuff around, but you still got to go get somebody. And you mentioned Julian Fleming. I like Deion Burks. I think he's the number 1 guy right now out of Purdue. I think he had 7 touchdowns last year. Everyone's going to be after him. Like, can Penn State win that, right? Because no discredit to Dante Cephas, but he wasn't like that. He wasn't the Deion Burks of the transfer portal time. He was up there, but he wasn't the number 1, number 2, number 3 kind of guys coming out. One of the guys, for example, last year, I forget, Mitchell went from Georgia to Texas, and you need somebody like that. You need one of the top end guys. Burks is one of them. There's a couple other, like, I think you take Fleming, but I don't think you can be satisfied with just getting Fleming, Shawn.
No, I agree with you. Fleming's a nice player. He's a good player. But he's not a game changer. I mean, I think he showed that at Ohio State. Now, would he have more opportunities at Penn State? Of course. I mean, look at some of the guys he played behind. He played behind Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, now Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Like, these are all guys that are probably Pro Bowlers in the NFL. So he was buried a little bit in the depth chart. And do I think he could play? Yeah, I do. He just wasn't what he was hyped up to be. And part of that is played at a small school here in Northeast PA. Southern Columbia is in the state finals, actually. And sometimes with small school guys, they become the big fish in the small pond. We've seen it at Penn State with Lamont Wade. Lamont Wade also went to a small school. And Daquan Hardy is kind of what we all thought Lamont Wade was going to be. And he just never became that guy. And so that happens. Now, like I said, do I want Fleming? Yeah. But I also want somebody else to pair with him, because if we just go and get Julian Fleming and say, all right, we're done, that ain't good enough.
Yeah, 100% agree. I said this last week. I want to reiterate it, though, especially since so many quarterbacks went the transfer portal today. It is nice having Drew Aller. It is nice having Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Don't have to worry about those. I'd be so anxious if Penn State went in the portal needing a quarterback, needing a receiver, needing a couple players. Like, the more you add to that list, I feel like you really got to start prioritizing things. Penn State really should just be focusing on wide receiver and maybe corner. And then, yeah, they can get other things, great. But, they would like to get an offensive tackle. They would like to get a defensive tackle. But if they don't get a receiver, I think we'll all agree it was a failure in the transfer portal. Like, they have to get somebody. And not just somebody, but they got to get someone.
Yeah, they better get someone. Because what we saw this year, it's just not going to cut it. And you're also in danger of, and I don't know what happens, we may lose both Tyler Warren and Theo Johnson. And they were the bright spots of the receiving game in 2023. I keep saying last year.
Not quite there.
Yeah, those guys were the guys that we went to when we were in trouble. And when we weren't throwing toward the tight ends, the whole offense just fell apart. And we need somebody in the portal at receiver. And you're right. Like, when you approach this, you only have so much in NIL to throw around. And you only have so many roster spots. So you have to be very choosy with what you bring in.
And honestly, like, okay, let's say no more wide receivers enter the portal. Like, you don't have that much room. We don't know what Keandre Lambert-Smith is going to do. We don't know what Dante Cephas is going to do. We're still, like, waiting for the 2024 class to wrap up, which I'll talk about the housekeeping items at the end of the episode. But I think we can maybe circle the 11th, Shawn, as maybe a deep dive, and then that will set us up well for a kind of a recap on December 20th, which is early signing day. But so we're going to talk recruiting on Monday's episode, the 11th. But I'm just saying, you don't have that many spots, so you better choose correctly. And, like, realistically, you're just not going to get that many guys. Like, I think Malik McClain's an interesting one, because I don't know if Dante Cephas is coming back, what he's going to do. Like, he could technically leave. He could stay. Malik McClain is younger-ish still. So if he left, he'd have to sit out. And so I think he's going to stay, but, like, where does he get in his development? He had some really good flashes this year, but not a bunch. He actually showed some moments of good blocking too. And then he had some really bad moments. So it'll be interesting to see from that standpoint. And again, Shawn, another thing to think about, getting somebody in that can come in and be a part of spring practice, right? Like, getting them there early, instead of, like, Dante Cephas didn't come until June. So you kind of want to get somebody who can be here for spring ball.
Yeah, and I think, and we discussed it during the season, that's part of what held Cephas back a little bit, was getting here late. I think Malik McClain does come back. I hope he does. Anybody who's tall and could run, yeah, I like having guys like that, but he's gotta be better. I mean, obviously, everybody in that room has to be better. And there I am with my goose egg from the last week.
It's embarrassing, Shawn, that our co-hosts did not pick in the final round of the Big Ten. Finally got the scores done. The Big Ten, the hardcore PSU Big Ten pick'em is over. I did not repeat as champion, which is probably a good thing for the show. Our very own Mr. Einstein von Braun taking home the dub, 106 points. He just barely beats Real Hunt Dog 23, 106 to 105. Corey Real Hunt Dog, 8 out of 9. So he was almost perfect. He almost was able to tie him. I actually tripped and fell on my face, 4 points out of 9. I ended up third, tied with our Scats, who came in. Mr. is going to go home with a Christian Hackenberg signed jersey, and Real Hunt Dog and our Scats are going to get a merch item of their choice from the Mercury store, which, by the way, I don't think I retweeted. I'm going to make sure to retweet it right now. If you haven't already seen these shirts, I love these shirts. Go check them out. We'll retweet it right now on our Twitter. I think Adam Brenham technically tweeted them out, but they're in the Mercury store, and they are the "We Are Feeling Peachy" shirts, and I love them. I think they're fantastic. Got a little football and the peach emblem there, and the logo there, and it has the date. I think having the date is really cool too. So you have that kind of. We're gonna be rocking some, Shawn, and you should definitely check them out. This is probably the best merch item that they've come out with. So really like those.
And it underscores how we're feeling. We're feeling
peachy. Yeah.
So,
anyway, thank you to everybody who participated in the Big Ten Pick'em. We had over 70 people fill out a Pick'em this year, which is pretty cool. So thank you guys for doing it. If you came in late towards the season, we'll do it again next year. But the fun is not over, Shawn. In our description, and we posted on Twitter already, we are doing our bowl pick'em again. $10 to enter. Shawn keeps all the money. $10 to enter. Winner takes. I don't know what we did. I want to say we might have gave second place back their money, depending on how much. Depends how many entries we get, really, to make it worthwhile. But $10 to enter. All you have to do is download the Excel that I have up there. Email back to me at hardcorecfb@gmail.com or DM it to us. Just find a way to get it to us, basically. Venmo me at Corey_Lestochi, and you can play along. I don't remember who won last year. Did Matty Fresh win?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either.
I could see that, though. He's entombed.
Yeah. Anyway, so if you want to be in the bowl,
he was our first guest here at Mercury.
Yeah, it was. If you want to be a part of the bowl pick'em, go on Twitter. You can find it there. There's also a description in our YouTube for this episode, so you can find it there as well. But anyway, thank you guys for playing the pick'em. It's always fun. Thank you for all the guest pickers that came on and picked as well. But anyway, really, really fun time. Always like competing against you guys. You want to get us some fan questions, Shawn?
Let's
wrap up with some fan questions. Not to pick at the scab, but we do have one question related to the playoffs, so we'll start there. This is from Dorito Bandit, longtime listener to the show. Which was the bigger playoff snub, 2023 Florida State or 2016 Penn State? Shawn, I think we can easily answer this and say it was Florida State, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Right. I do want to say this, though. The way at which they decided to take Bama over Florida State, Bama having one loss in a conference championship versus Florida State being undefeated in a conference championship, completely changed from the precedent they had set with Ohio State getting in over Penn State. Because remember, one of the reasons why they claimed Penn State wasn't equivocally on the same page as Ohio State was because they had 2 losses and Ohio State only had 1 loss. So therefore, they wouldn't even compare no conference championship versus conference championship. But the committee didn't care about Bama having 1 additional loss than Florida State. And they were able to springboard them in. Probably didn't hurt that they had a conference championship, but Florida State also had a conference championship. In that example in 2016, Ohio State didn't have a conference championship and had lost head-to-head to Penn State. So I don't really know how you can say a team is clearly better than another team when they won the conference and they won the head-to-head. But that year, honestly, Shawn, I think USC and Penn State were both top 4 teams at the end of the year. I know Washington was in there, but I think USC plays Washington I think USC could have beat them. And obviously, Ohio State didn't do. I don't think Penn State beats Clemson that year, but I know Penn State at least scores against Ohio State.
Yeah. I mean, the 2016 team, I mean, you can't lose to Pitt. Like, it's that simple. Don't lose to Pitt. There. Over. Don't lose to them. And we did. And everybody and their brother got hurt against Michigan. And, we ended up getting annihilated up there, and you can't get blown out. Yeah, you could make a good argument. We should have been in, especially since we had the head-to-head and the conference championship over Ohio State. But again, nothing the committee, and this just goes to show, nothing the committee does makes any sense. They don't care about precedent. They just make it up as they go along. They don't care about the precedent from a week ago, let alone 8 years ago. Right.
That's a good point. That's a good way to put it, Shawn. Question from our Big Ten Pick'em champion, Einstein von Braun. Mister, if Manny Diaz leaves, who on the current staff would be a viable replacement that could bring similar intensity and results? So viable replacement, I think there's really only 2 that stick out to me, Shawn. 1, Terry Smith. 2, Anthony Poindexter. Is that right?
Yeah, Barnes isn't ready for it yet, although he's a stud. Yeah, I think Anthony Poindexter is going to be a head coach sooner rather than later. So, yeah, I think he could do it if we were to go in-house. And this could be something we're facing. Maybe next week. Maybe next time we talk, Manny Diaz isn't the defensive coordinator anymore. And I would be somewhat comfortable with Anthony Poindexter becoming the defensive coordinator. When you have, in my mind, the best unit in the country, at that point, I'm comfortable promoting from within, as long as you have somebody there who could do it.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel yet, but yeah, I think that's a good question as far as in-house. I don't know if anyone brings that intensity, but I would assume if you keep it in-house, you've got to keep aspects of the Manny Diaz defense. It's just been too effective to completely go away from it. I'd be curious. As far as I don't really know outside of the program who Manny Diaz's disciples are, but that's something maybe to keep in mind at some point. Okay,
we have them
potentially. Maybe one of them was Ola, who just went to Indiana.
Would have been.
Next question is from Brennan Malinovich, longtime listener. I think he actually showed us his Spotify Wrapped, and we were in there. We got a couple people submit though, so we appreciate that. That's I don't know, Shawn, at least to you and I, kind of mind blowing that we're in people's top 5, top 1, whatever. I can't believe podcast of choice. One buddy texted me. He said he's listening 30 or I don't know how many minutes. So thousands of minutes. I think it was 9,000 minutes maybe. So
I don't think I've listened to us for 9,000 minutes.
No. Anywho, his question: will we see the new offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, coach the bowl game? Cautiously optimistic with him. Hey, we used that word earlier. Has the knowledge, but worried if he'll have the freedom to. answer that real quickly. I don't think he's going to. I don't think that's the plan. I think he'll try to do what Manny Diaz does and kind of just watch, observe, take notes. Shawn, I want you to answer this question, though. What's your favorite bowl memory?
It's got to be the 05 Orange Bowl, 06 Orange Bowl. I was it was school night. I was in 5th grade and I stayed up till like 1 a.m. because Kevin Kelly couldn't hit a field goal. And Florida State's kicker also couldn't hit a field goal, and it just kept going back and forth. And finally, we had the one that snuck in. And it was just a fun cap because I had never seen Penn State win. At the time, they were called BCS Bowls. I had never seen them win one. And it was just cool watching that with my dad and seeing Michael Robinson eat oranges with Joe Paterno at the end. So that would probably be mine.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that's honestly the game that really like made me stick into Penn State fandom. Like if they don't win that game, I'll probably still end up being a huge Penn State fan. But that was like really kicked it off for me. I was sold probably for the rest of my life. I'm gonna go Capital One Bowl. I was at that game. It was miserable. It was rainy. The field was awful. That was my first bowl game I ever went to. Penn State won 19-17. I think Anthony Farah was the kicker. No, maybe not. I don't know if Kevin Kelly was still there. I think it was Anthony Farah.
Might have been Colin Wagner.
Oh, it might have been Colin Wagner.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't even remember watching the kick. I remember I just had my shoulder turned the whole time, and didn't even watch it go through. But low key, like a big win for Penn State as far as like hadn't at that point done very well, and really didn't do very well still haven't done very well against SEC teams in bowl games. Kentucky loss, Georgia loss, Arkansas loss. So kind of a big game for them to win. In hindsight, looking back, that LSU team also had some really. I think Brandon LaFell was on that team. Who's the running back too that played for the Patriots?
I don't remember. It was Trenton Holiday, and I think they played a national. I think they won I think they played in the title game the next year. So it was, and that was a game nobody picked Penn State to win. That was probably the biggest upset that I can remember Penn State having in a bowl game. Because
Stephen Ridley was one of the running backs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was a loaded team, and LSU in the Les Miles day, they got guys. Problem was, I don't think Les was a very good coach. He was good enough, and they did win a national championship there, but it always felt like they should have done so much more because they had some serious players.
I got distracted because I love what DA Adam just said on YouTube. He says, "Hey Mercury, if you're listening, while the Peach Bowl t-shirt is cool, we need some hardcore PSU logo merch if you can get away with it from a licensing perspective." So I just took a picture of that and I sent it over to our boss, and we've been pushing him a little bit for that to begin with. Hopefully that the more people that say that, the easier it is to get that. So
absolutely,
just go on Twitter. I think it's like @collegesports is the name of Mercury. Go @State Media and just berate them with, we want hardcore PSUFB merch. If we can get like 10 people to do that, you can add us as well and we'll retweet it. That'd be great. So just keep @Mercury, @State Media, @Hardcore PSUFB. We need hardcore Penn State football merch. Thank you, DA.
Yes, thank you. Very kind.
Last question, Shawn. From Bradley. How many opt-outs do you expect? And if we lose somebody like Chop Robinson, for example, would this be a good game to give someone like Tony Rojas a start? Also, what's your thoughts on playing Ole Miss? Good challenge for Penn State. Well, we talked about Ole Miss already. Chop Robinson, obviously, and Tony Rojas don't play the exact same position, but you could use, say, a Curtis Jacobs and a Tony Rojas, for example. You could use a Kalen King and a Cam Miller, for example. So there's plenty of examples that Bradley's trying to make here, and I think it's a good question. Shawn, first of all, how many opt-outs are you expecting? It's hard for me to even speculate. Like, I have no idea.
I think over-under is probably 2.5. I could see Chop opting out. He's had what I think, I'm not a doctor, what I think was a concussion in the Ohio State game. You really don't want 2 concussions in the same year when you're going in the draft. And maybe Olu. Other than that, I frankly don't think anybody else should sit out. I think they all could stand to make a good amount of money by playing, and it's a big stage. You're the only game on at that time. Why not play? And they're really the only 2 clear-cut first-round picks that I could think of. Adese Isaac has a chance to play his way into it. Kalen King certainly has a chance to play his way into it. But I don't think they're there yet. And I think if you're not a first-round pick or you don't feel pretty damn good about being one, you should play. So that's kind of my thought on that. And also, if Chop does sit out, I think we'll be fine. Because Denai Dennison's there, and he's like another defense. He's like another starter.
We've already got a response from management, by the way. Management has said that, is that your burner account? Which,
well, we got to show them it's not, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, DA Adam. That's not our burner account. I would like to see Abdul Carter play a little bit of defensive end. He's played better at linebacker the last 4 games or so, but I still think he could do some really just nasty things from the defensive end spot. He blitzes really well anyway, and so it's not like he's not being utilized to rush the passer, but in an obvious passing down, I know he has an interception against Illinois. I don't think you're losing too much if you take him out from like a pass coverage. I think line him up. Let's say Chop Robinson doesn't play. Line him up on a 3rd and long at defensive end, and just you get some true speed out there. The quarterback for Ole Miss, I'm assuming he's going to play. Dart's got some wiggle to him. You're going to have to be able to contain him. Speed's going to be important. Why not throw him out there and see what he could do at that spot in certain situations? So anyway, I just want to throw that out there. I'm gonna probably harp on that a decent amount all off season, Shawn. So just be mentally prepared for that.
And if Penn State ever brings in Shawn Barnum, he does a lot of the same things Abdul Carter does. That's where you could see Abdul Carter maybe move to end. I don't think it's a bad idea. It's just like right now, my thing is, well, who's going to replace Abdul Carter?
Right. Tony Rojas.
Well, yeah, you could do that.
The Tony Rojas hype for next year is going to be insane.
Yes. Yeah. Rojas is going to be very, very good. I mean, you guys, we were talking about it all off season. Like, this guy's going to be really good. And then every time he played, he just made plays. So you're going to see more and more of him next year. And we still got Dom. So I think Dom starts next year.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's going to be at that Sam spot. What do you do? And
right.
Do you move Carter over? I would prefer if you didn't, because I think you're a little bit more limited when you play the Sam.
Yeah, you're more boxed in.
Based off of Dom DeLuca's PFF grade, he was like the number 1 rated PFF linebacker in the Big Ten. I would say, yeah. But I just don't know if he's an every down linebacker against the Penn State or the Michigans and Ohio States of the world. And against everyone else, like, he can probably do enough. But
I think that's part of being a coach, like knowing how much to put on someone's plate and knowing what they could handle. And I kind of agree with you. I kind of think DeLuca is in a perfect role right now, being that special teams guy and being a good reserve linebacker who you trust in a game, but you don't trust him too much. You don't trust him to play 70 snaps. So
Tyler Elson.
yeah, but he's better.
Yeah.
But yes, similar concept though.
on the same spectrum, just not the same.
Yeah, similar concept.
Okay, Shawn. I want to say it's a shorter show, but it's not really that much shorter of a show. So let me just run through the housekeeping items real quick for people. So Big Ten Bowl Pick'em is out. You can go get your Pick'em thing out there. Make sure to go on Twitter and at State Media. I almost want to give away management's personal Twitter, but I'm not going to. And say we want hardcore PSU FB merch.
You could have people text them.
Yeah. And that's the best way to get specific merch for us. And anyway, the shows. We do not have a show on Wednesday. Well, I shouldn't say that. We do not have a live show on Wednesday, but we have a special show that's going to be dropping on Wednesday. That was pre-recorded. And when we were at the Mercury house before the Michigan game. So that will be up, I'm assuming Wednesday sometime. I'm not exactly sure. So we will not be live on Wednesday, but that show will be out on Wednesday sometime. And then we'll be back on Monday and we'll go from there. So that's the latest and all that. Thank you guys so much for listening. It's just been awesome year. You guys are keeping it strong even as we get into December. So that's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and I think I heard Audrey Snyder say the other day, this is the craziest month to cover college football. So stick with us this month, December. Lots of stuff is going to happen just in the next week, stuff that we can't even foresee yet. So stick with us. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all I have. Shawn, are you good?
I'm all good.
Okay. Well, for Shawn Kane, I'm Corey Lestochi. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. Until next time, see you.